thank you all again for joining. And Sarah, thank you so much for making this happen. We connected over the Howard University International, I think international education sort of informal gathering just for people to talk about how they're dealing with COVID at their schools. And so I was actually trying to reach out to you all to visit in person before all of this. But I saw that she was at Bennett. I was like, a human, yes, I can connect with. So thank you, Sarah.
Not a problem. So
Awesome.
great to have you.
All right. So since we're a small group, I'm going to actually just share my screen first with you all.
And Bunmi, are you recording?
We're going to record right now. Thank you for reminding.
Good. We do this. This is our Global Studies Happy Hour time slot. So I will, if you send me the video, I will put it on YouTube.
Okay.
And then share it on social media and all that good stuff.
Perfect. Actually, it says we're recording now. I forgot I set the setting to record automatically when we started.
Perfect.
So I'm just going to share my slides with you all. Okay. Okay, can you all see the first slide?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
And I will go ahead and mute myself.
Yes, and I was just about to say, if you could all mute your line, that would be great. Just a quick housekeeping rules. You can absolutely use the chat box to send a question, or if you just have comments, that's even better. And then Laurel Brooks, who's on the line, she is also going to help field questions as well. And if it's something that I think we can cover at the end, I'll certainly just hold and do it then. Oops, I'm gonna go back. I am Bunmi Akinnusotu, as you all know, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Rangel Program at Howard University. I've been in this role for a year and like 3 months. I started January, I started January 2019. And Laura Brooks, as I mentioned, is our program coordinator. She's been here longer than I have, I think like 2017, 16, right, Laurel?
Yes, 2017.
Sorry. Okay, great. So this program has been around, the Rangel Fellowship has been around since 2003 at Howard University. So we have a long-standing history of working with Foreign Service officers and the State Department. I got my entree into the foreign policy space actually at the Environmental Protection Agency. And I had the great honor and privilege to serve then President Barack Obama and working on climate change, global climate change issues. So once the administration ended, I leveraged that experience, and I'll talk about leverage in a second. I leveraged that experience to really jump into the foreign policy space. And I was particularly interested in making sure that the Foreign Service looked like America. And so was fortunate to land here, which is great. So let me see. I actually do have a quick poll, but a quick overview of the program. So the Rangel program has 2 parts. The Graduate Fellowship, which we typically say, we refer to them as the Rangel Fellows, and the Rangel Scholars, which is our undergraduate program. It's called the Summer Enrichment Program. Both of these programs are funded by the State Department with the intention to promote excellence and diversity in the Foreign Service. As I mentioned, Howard is the administrator, so we do everything from the recruitment, the selection, reviewing the applications for initial eligibility, professional development, reaching out to folks like you all to help spread the word. Again, these 2 programs are what we work on every single day. It's the bread and butter. And it's one of the most important, I would say, it's one of the key vehicles for the State Department to bring in diverse, amazing, qualified individuals to become Foreign Service officers, to become diplomats. So before we jump into the presentation, I do have a quick icebreaker. So I have a poll because I want to see what people are interested in. See if this thing works. All right, so can you all see the poll here? Yeah, all right, I see head nods, which means it's a good thing. So if you wouldn't mind just participating, and Sarah, Ann, and Laurel, you got to participate too, and sharing what your issue areas are, or issue areas you're interested in. This may not be like, you know, what your job is right now, but just overall, what are some of your interest areas that you, you know, that keep you, you know, like, that's interesting. Let's see what we've got. We've got human rights, international development, great. Gender policy, a lot for international education, makes sense because I know this is the study abroad folks. Good, good, good. Nice, great. Lots of human rights. That's lots of human rights. That's amazing. Good deal. Okay. I see immigration just popped up. Cool. Great. If I had to do this, I would definitely say the probably also human rights. I didn't add it here. I probably also click something else and put media. I'm interested in media, and democracy issues, how we promote democracy, if you will, abroad. So thank you all for participating. Great group of great spread of interest here. Lots of human rights. Lots of human rights. Awesome. Cool. All right. So the reason why I'm going to share the results, that is so amazing. Did you guys see the results? Can you see it? Look at that. Yeah, I'm going to see if I actually I want to be able to see the chat box. All right. So we've got a lot of human rights. That's good. That's good. I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the careers. So the reason why I ask that is because a lot of people actually don't know the types of issues that the State Department covers, and the broad range of careers, which I'll talk about later, and just the role that the State Department plays in you know, the foreign policy world. We like to use oh, my screen is a little frozen. There we go. We like to use the Summer Enrichment Program, the Rangel Scholars Program, to do just that, which is to help undergrads understand, you know, not just current foreign policy issues, but just understand overall the various career opportunities there are. So for many of you, if you studied abroad, you may come back and wonder, so what do I do with this amazing experience that I had? You know, how do I talk about this amazing experience? And so the reason why I think it's great that we're talking to you all is because you could apply to the Summer Enrichment Program, and we expose you to the array, as many as we possibly can in 6 weeks, the array of career opportunities, and people, amazing people who can talk to you about how they got to their role, the skills they needed, the sort of DC way of doing things. And if anybody's lived in DC, you know we have a particular way of engaging with one another in this town. That's a separate presentation. So the Summer Enrichment Program takes place in Washington, DC, at Howard University. I will say parenthetically that obviously because of COVID, things have changed. So we are going virtual, 100% virtual this summer, which is unfortunate. But the good news is that all of the people who we normally speak to, the think tanks and the CIA and all of those people, are so excited to still provide support to us and talk to our scholars. So, but normally everybody comes to Washington, D.C. for 6 weeks. And they participate in 2 academic courses, which are paid for by the program. They are the political economy and the history of U.S. foreign relations. There are tons and tons of workshops and professional development seminars around writing. One of the key skill sets in this field is writing a concise, paper, writing a concise memo, making sure that your email is professional. And so we spend all 6 weeks, 11 classes total, of just learning how to write in the sort of the foreign policy lens. And then, of course, we have lots of parties and networking events so that the scholars start to build a community of experts that they're comfortable with, even after the program, reaching out to say, hey, I saw a job at USAID, or I saw a job at Brookings. I remember you did a presentation. Can I grab 10 minutes of your time to talk about blank, right? So we really value community and network here, not just for the Rangel Scholars, but the Rangel Fellows, which I'll talk about in a second. The part that excites people the most, I think, is obviously the financial benefit. So the scholars do receive a stipend of $3,200 for the summer, for the whole entire 6 weeks. We pay for travel once they are selected. So once everything is all set, we pay for your travel to Washington, D.C. and back home. We pay for your room and board. The scholars stay at the infamous Howard Towers, where they get to live with other Howard students who are there over the summer, which is always fun. And then, of course, we pay for all the transportation needs from one site visit to another. So it's really a program where we value equity, and we want to make sure that the fellows come here not feeling like they can't survive in DC. They absolutely can through this program. So what are the eligibility requirements? The first is that you must be a US citizen, and that's because this is a State Department funded program. You have to have a GPA of at least 3.2, a cumulative GPA. And the one question that I get from undergrads typically is, I went to community college, or I'm still in community college. Can I apply? And the answer is yes, so long as you have at least 30 credits, which is about sophomore status. So if you're in your second year of your associate's degree, you can absolutely apply to the program so long as you have at least 30 credits. And this is the same. This is the same for a 4-year institution. So sophomores are welcome to apply, and seniors. So even if you are graduating, say in May 2020, you could apply. In this case, it would be May 2021 when we do the next cycle. So graduating seniors are welcome to apply. You must be a registered full-time for the last semester to which you're applying. So, or I would say the semester through which the program is happening. So that would be the spring semester for our program. So you have to be registered full-time. The selection process for SEP is pretty straightforward. Our application typically opens in October, and then it closes usually the first Tuesday of February. So we understand that October is tricky because usually that's midterm time, but we feel like, the November, certainly December timeframe is a good time to really apply, but it's open as early as October. We notify the students by the end of March. There is no interview process for this. They select 15 scholars. The question that always comes up is, how many applications do we get? So we usually get, so this last cycle, we got 1,092 applications for 15 slots. Now, I will say that not everybody meets the eligibility requirement, and not everybody follows instructions. So when you boil that down, it went down to about like 470 people. Yeah, and that's the face that a lot of people make. So that many people either don't complete the application, they don't submit their recommenders on time, they don't have the right GPA. For various reasons, they don't even meet the minimum requirement. So if you're advising students in this process, make sure that, one, they're starting early, and two, that they are hitting all the marks in terms of the eligibility. And following this meeting or this session, I will make sure I sent some of the flyer material, but we have additional material that we can share to make sure that you support the students. And for students, if you're here, start early, and make sure you're nurturing relationships with folks like Anne and your faculty advisors or career services folks to make sure your application at least meets the minimum requirement.
Just one thing to add. So students, I think it's interesting what Bunmi just said. Pay attention. When she said those that didn't meet the minimum automatically out.
Yeah, automatically, because we just don't have the bandwidth to, reach out to every single person. So yeah, don't start. When we send out announcements, you all will get it. And so we tell students to, even if it's just like you chip away at it little by little, starting with your recommenders, that's usually where people get hung up the most. And I'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the application process. But we do have experienced international affairs professionals reading through each and every single one of those, like 470 or so applications. I'll talk at the end about some application tips and what are the things that they look for. But they are read, and I don't want people to think that, it's like a machine. These are humans going through your essays and your recommendations and your requirements to make sure that we select the best candidates for the program.
So one question for you before you move on.
Yeah.
How much weight is put on? Are you guys trying to get a diverse student representation from different HBCUs, or is it like a blind read? Great
question. So our program reaches out to HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, AAP, I always forget their acronym, the Asian American Pacific Islander universities. We do predominantly white institutions, but we target groups such as the multicultural student unions, et cetera, international organizations, study abroad programs, et cetera. So we don't have a criteria where you have to be a student at an HBCU. That's not a formal part of the application requirements, but we do recruit heavily at schools where our target population is at. Does that answer the question? Okay. Great. So what's required, what's expected in regards to the application? So it is online. You have a personal statement that's 500 words or less. And this is the statement that demonstrates why you're interested in applying, what you hope to get out of the program, your accomplishments or experiences, what after the program you hope to do, which is ideally you'd say, I'm interested in joining the Foreign Service, so it's not required. And then you have the series of documents that you have to submit to us demonstrating you meet that minimum threshold. I see we have a couple of people who are trying to get into the room. Just give me a second. I'm just going to admit them. Perfect. Okay. I don't know who I just admitted, but welcome. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to do a quick break. And what I want you all to do, I'm just going to bring my chat box, up. I want you in the chat box, or if you're on the line, you're welcome to, unmute yourself. Who knows what a Foreign Service Officer actually does? I'm just going to bring up the chat. Let's see what we've got. Laurel, I'm going to ask for your help. For some reason, the chat box for me, even though I'm clicking on chat, doesn't seem to appear. If you wouldn't mind just reading out some of the responses to what do Foreign Service Officers do?
So first we got diplomatic service, international engagement, and policy work.
Yes. Policy International engagement. Anything else?
Still waiting.
Okay. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and share what they think a foreign service officer / diplomat actually does?
Economic development. They deal with American interests around the world, promote
Mhm. Yep. Yes. All right. Great. So you all did a great job. It's all of that. It's all of that. So, and someone specifically said they deal with U.S. interest abroad. That's exactly what a foreign service officer does. So the Foreign Service, the State Department Foreign Service, I won't go into depth with all of these because I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions, and I go through the Graduate Fellowship Program. So I talked about the Summer Enrichment Program, which is our undergrad program. You are not going into the Foreign Service with that program. That is strictly an exposure experience. But what we hope is that you are interested in joining the Foreign Service and applying to our graduate program, which I'll talk about in a second. So the tracks of the Foreign Service, there are 5. The political officers deal with anything politically on the ground in another country. That could be an election, that can be a protest, that could be changes in policy that might impact US citizens who want to travel to that country. So the political officer is steeped in the political context or political environment of that country. Public diplomacy officers like to deal with the people. It's the people and people engagement. This is where the folks who are managing Fulbright programs, or they're managing cultural exchange programs, international education programs. They're also working with, say, American businesses who may want to come to, say, India and learn or connect with other Indian business owners in, say, the agricultural field or whatever it is. This is one of our most popular tracks when people enter the Foreign Service. The economics officer is just that. They're dealing with issues of economics and trade and finance and monetary policy within the context of that country. The consular affairs officer, which is the area of most need in the Foreign Service, because the #1 reason people go to US embassies is to get a visa. And so you need people who can interview people who are coming to the embassy to seek a visa, to get married to an American citizen, if they want to adopt. God forbid if they get in trouble and they need somebody to sort of like help them out with some legal issues. Consular affairs officers really are the frontline officers for the Foreign Service. And actually everybody does a consular affairs tour. Everybody does it because it's so important and the need is extremely great. The management officer, which is my favorite track, this is somebody who is interested in the business of managing an embassy, the operations of managing an embassy, from the security, the hiring, the budget, the technology, if there's an event, making sure that event space is available. In the case of, say, COVID, making sure that staff and everybody is aware of what's happening. So they're really critical components in making sure that our U.S. embassies are safe. So these are the 5. Again, I won't go into any more detail, but if you are interested, Laurel, if I can have you share the link, check out the State Department website. And they offer great explanations, and you can actually check out videos of people who work in these various career tracks. So the Graduate Fellowship Program is, as I mentioned, a critical component of bringing diverse individuals into the Foreign Service in one of those 5 tracks that I've explained. So the Graduate Fellowship Program provides up to $37,500 annually over 2 years, so each year of your graduate school experience. We provide fees covered for tuition when you do your internships, living expenses when you come to Washington, D.C. for orientation. It's about $100,000 that we spend on fellows when they're done with our program. So you have to be interested in going to graduate school if you apply to this. We do orientation to not just the Rangel program, but the Foreign Service overall. We do 2 internships. One is a domestic internship on the Hill. So you get to work on Capitol Hill and learn about how the Hill deals with foreign policy, which I can tell you, as you can see nowadays, is really important to have. A lot of foreign service officers don't get this opportunity. So when they're working with the Hill, there's sort of a knowledge gap. But our fellows go in equipped and ready to understand just how the Hill thinks when they're having to do legislative work around certain foreign policy issues. And then we want the fellows to really understand what they're walking into and also understand an embassy. So you do a 10-week internship at a US embassy or consulate abroad. And both of these internships are paid. The overseas internship also provides support for your housing. You are assigned, or we ask for preferences, but you're typically assigned a post for the 10 weeks, and you operate as if you were, a foreign service officer. And that is really a pivotal moment for many of our fellows, because they get to actually see what their lives would be like, and they get to build their network of other foreign service officers. We are heavily proponents of mentorship and sponsorship. So each fellow is matched with another fellow to talk them through the hiring, to talk them through security clearance, to talk them through grad school, to talk them through lifestyle. If you're married, if you have kids, there's no age limit. I would say there is an age limit. It's 59 and a half, but no, we haven't had anybody, I don't think, apply who's that old, but usually the ages, the youngest is 21. So we do have people who just come out of undergrad apply and get into our program. But you're matched with somebody who has similar interests or lifestyle habits so that you can feel comfortable walking into this space. So assuming, you meet some of the other requirements, you enter the foreign service. The term is called A100. That is the class of foreign service officers. So similar to the Summer Enrichment Program, there are eligibility requirements. So you do have to be a US citizen. Your GPA from undergrad has to be at least a 3.2. The question we often get here is, I've already graduated. What do I do? It's totally fine. We have people who have been out of school 10 years, 20 years. They do have to do a little bit more legwork to get their transcripts. But it's not an issue if you decide to wait to apply to this program, just so long as you meet the GPA requirement. You have to be ready to enter grad school. This should actually say fall of 2021 because of the upcoming cycle. So the program application opens mid-June. It will close mid-September. So once you go through the process of selections, then you will be entering grad school next fall, which is the fall of 2021. You will enter our master's program, and the master's program has to be US based, and it has to be in an area of interest to the State Department. That's broad though. So what do those degrees look like? That's public administration, business, international development, sociology, law, international monetary policy, the range of programs. What we don't fund are law degrees, engineering, sort of more harder sciences. Those are not within if you wanted to do, education, social work, that would not be covered here. But we would work with you to determine, what graduate school program you're interested in. We don't set that requirement, or we don't set a requirement. That's totally up to the scholar, but we do have to make sure that the program they select is in line with the Foreign Service and certainly the State Department interests. All right. So what do you go through? This is a little bit more intense than the Summer Enrichment Program. So we have 30 slots every year that we fill with applicants, 30 slots. So for next year, for 2021, we'll select 30 people. We do select alternates, which we often draw from for various reasons. You will submit an application that includes your academic background, a personal statement similar to the Summer Enrichment Program. Because this is also a financial need program, this is where it's also intense for the applicant, is you do have to provide a FAFSA, you have to do a financial need statement. We have a financial need questionnaire. So you really have to make sure that before you apply, so this is not an application that you start even a week before the application deadline. This is an application that you start at least, I would say at least a month, because you've got to give your recommenders time to write for you. You've got to, do your FAFSA, which might take a while. You've got to do a bunch of different things. You've also got to craft a really good personal statement, and think about your community service and leadership and all the honors you've got. You don't submit a resume for this, so you have to actually fill out information in the application. So here's the rough schedule for this year. The deadline again is going to be sometime in early September. It'll open mid-June. We select finalists. We select 60 finalists in October. All 60 will come to Washington, D.C. for 2 days, well, really 1 day, but you'll have interviews here and we pay for that. So we pay for your flight, we pay for your hotel in Washington, D.C. We do not pay for food, but we feed you. So there's no reason why you'll be hungry during interviews. We take good care of you when you come to DC. And then at the same time, well, right after that, usually around before Thanksgiving, you'll know if you've been offered an opportunity. So from the 60, we select 30. And then we have alternates who are sort of put in a holding pattern until, a fellow decides they don't want to participate or someone doesn't make it through the program or whatever it is. What are you obligated to do? So there is medical security and suitability clearances. I will not go through each one of those, but I will break that. I will simply say that this is the process of making sure that you are fit for service. So they're going to be all up in your business. Yes. There is a medical sure that you're healthy. And it's not that you're, if you've got diabetes or another issue, it's how you manage with all of this. It's how you manage your medical concerns or your medical issue. How are you managing your financial responsibilities? How are you managing relationships with other people? This is not run by Howard. This is all run by the State Department. The area that gets people tripped up with security clearance, two quick things. First is marijuana, weed. This is still a federal offense. So what we tell applicants is that if you've partaken in marijuana, just wait a year, because they're going to ask you about it and you don't want to lie. So just wait a year, and then you can apply. It may be legal in Colorado, or I'm not sure what the provisions are for North Carolina, but it's still a federal offense. They don't allow it yet. Okay, good. So follow and no smoking or whatever, no edibles, nothing. And so the second thing caught up is travel to Cuba. So even under Obama, when he opened up Cuba, there were particular routes you had to take to make sure that it was a legitimate trip. And not everybody followed that, maybe because people just didn't know. There's no judgment there one way or another. But when they're asking you about where you've traveled and if Cuba pops up, not to say that you will be dismissed from the program, but they're going to want to know, well, who'd you talk to? Where'd you spend your money? Where'd you go? How'd you get there? Get back? All of those things. So those are the two things that usually trip people up about suitability and security. You have to maintain a 3.2 GPA while you're in grad school. You do have to take the Foreign Service test. You don't necessarily have to pass it. You do have to take it. You do have to take the oral assessment. And again, both of these programs we prepare you for. The oral assessment is one that you do have to pass. And it does, we do provide up to 5 years to pass it. Once the 5-year mark hits, and if you haven't passed the oral assessment, you will not be able to remain in the Foreign Service. Don't worry about this. I think something like the stat is like 96% of our fellows who've ever come through our program have passed the oral assessment. So unless they decide they want to leave at 5 years, which is their decision. So I mentioned the 5-year service obligation. So after grad school, you are obligated to complete 5 years, which is about 2 tours. Foreign service tours are about 2 years each, so 2 different countries perhaps during that time. Most fellows end up staying though. I want to take the second before we wrap up to just mention our sister program, which is the Thomas R. Pickering Graduate Fellowship. This is the same exact program as what I talked about for the last like 10 or so minutes. It is the same benefit, same mission, same number of fellows. Everything is the same, except for like two major things. The first is that instead of doing a internship on the Hill, we do an internship at State Department. The second thing is the timing. So for the Rangel Fellowship, you do your internship on the Hill before you enter graduate school. For the Pickering, you do that State Department internship the second summer, or I would say the second, between your first and second year, basically, of graduate school. That's really the only major difference between the Pickering. Yes, you can apply to both. You should absolutely apply to both and up your chances. So tips, I won't go through each and every single bullet. I want to just highlight some things that I haven't talked about so far. The first is the eligibility. I did talk about that, but I want to emphasize just making sure you're eligible, making sure you look at our website for all of the criteria. The second is your letters of recommendation. So for the Graduate Fellowship and the Summer Enrichment Program, you do have to have recommenders. You want to make sure that you start early, that you reach out to people early. For the Graduate Fellowship, we only require 2. And for the Summer Enrichment Program, because you're not doing an interview, we require 3. So you want to make sure that you have started or will start to work with people who will be writing on your behalf. And we do have a really great website that spells out sort of what's expected in the letter of recommendation. We also actually have the rubric that the recommender has to complete on your behalf with the section where they have to upload the letter. So you can actually see what they should be talking about in the letter. Proofread, proofread, proofread. You know, if you're thinking about applying to any of these programs, really any program in life, you should make sure that you have someone taking a look at your product. If you're applying to the Rangel program and the Pickering program, make sure that your personal statement mentions them separately. Don't submit a personal statement for Pickering that says Rangel and vice versa. Don't submit any personal statement that mentions another program. Just make sure, you know, these things are checked. These things happen because students are so, you know, concerned about other aspects of the application that they forget to proofread. So just make sure you take the time to make sure that you submit a really great product. So I will stop there. This is our contact information. You know, you can reach out to us and we're happy to answer questions. What I would like to do for you all following this, I'll keep some office hours. I'll send the link to maybe you, Sarah, or Anne, where students, if they want to, you know, talk more deeply about certain aspects of the program, I'm happy to host, you know, 20-minute phone calls with students so they can chat with me directly. Oh, and that is that. I'm going to switch on over to my video. And there. So I'm gonna open up the line, or I'd say unmute everyone. Actually, I'm gonna keep everybody muted. You can certainly type a question in the box. And then if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. If you want to wave your hand, I believe the hand waving thing, there was an icon, yes. So where's the little hand waving thing?
It's under reactions. I think it's a clap.
Is it a clap? Yes, under reactions, thank you. Under reactions, you can click it. If you don't see it, if you move your mouse over your video section, a little pop-up menu will appear at the bottom, and reactions is to the far right. Okay, so I see a reaction from someone. Go for it. I can't see, it doesn't allow me to see who's reacting. That's, oh, it's you, Anne.
I was modeling.
Oh, okay. Great. Any questions? Happy to answer them. I do want to address a couple of questions that I saw come in. One that was really important. So Sarah asked, what happens if you don't maintain a 3.2 in graduate school? So what happens if you don't is, as Laurel says, you get put on academic probation, and you have to submit an academic plan to Howard University and to State Department, really saying what you plan to do to improve your scores. I don't believe, very few have been, removed from the program because of the GPA. We really do try to, work with the fellow because we want you to succeed. I don't have the stat, but I know that, we do try to work with fellows who might have some academic concerns, but we need a plan. We need a plan of action if you don't make the GPA.
I can speak to that a little bit because we have, since I'm the compliance officer, so my job too is tracking once people are in the program to make sure that, especially once they are admitted as a fellow, that their transcripts match, especially if they haven't already graduated before actually being admitted to the program. And then once we actually start orientation and things like that. And then once they are in graduate school, because they do have to go full time. And then some of the programs that fellows pick are like very intensive programs like Columbia. Bunmi, you already can speak speak to this, and it's very, it's a lot going on. And so I know there's been a few cases where, just especially that first semester, people underestimate how much time they'll actually have to meet all the requirements. I've also had some fellows who got 4.0s and were also working full time. So in the case that they don't meet the GPA requirement, like especially that first semester, we understand it's like for some people, if they're coming straight in out of undergrad, it's a big readjustment. And so we just ask that, just create an academic plan, say, this is why I didn't meet the GPA requirement this semester, and this is what I'm going to do next semester to raise my GPA. A lot of econ usually messes people up, econ and stats. But we have had some times where it wasn't necessarily a matter of not understanding material, just mental health things and things like that. And so we're very understanding. It's not a case of if you don't meet it, you're automatically going to get kicked out and goodbye. So we do try to work with the fellows. We always just ask that, if there's something up, like, please tell us. Don't wait until the last minute, because then, we're limited in what we're able to do to help. But since I started working with the program, we haven't had anyone leave for those reasons. So more so, especially when speaking to applicants, we just try to get people to understand that this is not just, this is just money for grad school. It's an entire program, and it's very demanding. And that there's nothing wrong with just waiting a year, maybe getting more work experience, things like that, because those can help with the readjustment.
Yeah, that's a great Laurel. That's a really great point. I do want to also address the question. So if a is left, or if a fellow leaves the program, will they have to pay back the funding? And yes, that's the bottom line. So they do have to pay back. And then again, they're not paying Howard back, they're paying back the State Department.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying back the State Department. And we don't, there are certain rules around, not every, they don't have to pay back every single component. But yeah, they unfortunately do have to pay it back. But yeah, we try to prevent that as much as possible. As much as possible.
That could be a little bit complicated too, because it also depends on the reason. So like when Bunmi was mentioning the clearances, sometimes, like especially for a medical clearance, sometimes someone may be denied, and usually it's for a health reason. You don't have control over that. So if for that reason, there wouldn't really be a payback requirement, because that's something outside of your control. Whereas something like the security clearance or suitability, specifically with the weed issues, it's kind of like, well, you knew about that. You were aware that that wouldn't have gotten you your clearance ahead of time. And so depending on, with the clearances, since state does that, the Diplomatic Security Office, and that's a very long process. So sometimes once someone hears that they didn't get their clearance, they've already started grad school. And so by the time they started grad school, or really once they start the program, and we're actually paying tuition, that's kind of, I don't want to say it's like on a clock, but that's kind of determines what they will have to start paying back. So I know we had some people that had to leave the program, and they'd already done like a semester, in grad school. So that's what they would have to pay back. But the State Department does put them on a repayment plan. So it's not like they're saying, okay, give us $37,000 tomorrow, or, you know, we're going to take everything. They do work with them. And then you also, once they let you know, like, hey, you didn't get your security, you do have the ability to appeal, but you basically have to, in your appeal, you have to tell them information they don't already know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then depending on what it is, I mean, again, we're not doing it, so I can't say, oh, if you do X, you're not going to get it. It's so many other things at play, but just to be aware, generally, if you're not sure, it's okay to just wait.
Mm-hmm.
I just always say waiting is better.
Yeah.
But
and
that's,
you don't need a security clearance. Going back to the undergrad program, that does not require a security clearance, obviously, because you're not doing anything for the State Department. I want to transition to this question, which is sort of related, which is the summer, sorry, let me make sure. Do we have to do the summer program before signing up for the grad program? And that's Daja, if I said your name correctly. Daja, great question. Hi.
My name is Deja. Sorry.
Deja. Sorry about,
Yes,
thank you for that question. You do not need to apply. We have a pretty good hit rate though, in terms of scholars who become fellows, a pretty good hit rate. So we have 15 scholars every year. I think last year we had, I think every scholar who applied, which might've been like 6 of them,
Yep.
6 of them applied from the 2019 Rangel Scholars. 5 of them got in and became Rangel or Pickering Fellows. So if they, you know, obviously it's not an automatic, but if you, in your, you know, this is a tip, when you're applying for the leadership program, if you say, I want to be a foreign service officer, that definitely helps you in terms of getting into the Summer Enrichment Program. And then obviously, if you apply to the Graduate Fellow Program, you want to explain your desire, your interest in the foreign service or public service, whether it's you want to be a public diplomacy officer or you want to work on trade issues or whatever it is. So the two definitely, one builds on the other, but they're not required.
Bunmi, can you give us a sense of the 15 summer fellows? What were their interests and backgrounds? What are they studying?
Yeah, great question. So there is no major requirement for the Rangel Scholars. We have, I think this year's 2020 group that we selected, they are majoring in African American studies. They are majoring in econ. They are majoring in languages. Particularly, I'll skip ahead for the Rangel Graduate Fellowship. Language isn't a requirement, but if you had a language focus during your undergrad, certainly mention that. Absolutely the case for the Summer Enrichment Program. We had econ folks. We've had people majoring in music, English, agriculture, or it runs the gamut. The piece that's critical for the applicant is to make sure in their personal statement, they're making it clear why they're applying to the program and what that degree, that undergrad program, has to do with international affairs. Even if they don't want to become a foreign service officer per se, but if you're a music major or you're a psychology major or whatever it is, your job is to connect the dots between that major and your interest in international affairs. The reader or the reviewer doesn't know you like that, so it's your job to say, you know, I'm a psychology major. I'm really interested in counterterrorism issues, you know, and how you know, terrorist organizations operate. I just made that up, but that's one way you can connect it. So if you're a criminal justice major, this is another area where a lot of students are interested. Criminal justice has a lot to do with human rights issues, has to do with a lot with maybe gender issues. So your job is to do your homework, to look at the sort of various international affairs related sort of careers early on, and determine how that fits in with your major and explain that in a succinct way in your personal statement.
Awesome.
Great question. Let's see, any other questions? Nzinga, Adina, I'm gonna start calling on folks. Any other Ann Hayeses? Any questions?
So I have a question for Deja and Nzinga. As you guys hear Bunmi talking about the Summer Enrichment Program, any, what do you imagine, how do you imagine connecting with that? Do you think you will apply?
So just to start off, well, hi everyone.
Hi.
I'm Deja Sanford. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I honestly think I will. So I would just like to just give a little background of this. So before I received this email, I've been really discouraged. I'm a senior. I'm graduating class of 2020. But one thing that I've always been passionate about is traveling and, you know, just understanding the different cultures. And I've been blessed to do that through Bennett. Before I got to Bennett College, I didn't have a passport, and I got a passport, and I now can say that I've been to 7 countries, you know. So it was just like, just like yesterday, I was feeling like, what am I about to do? You know? Like, what is life, you know? So I'm definitely like excited for this opportunity. I'm definitely eager to like apply, and I'm sitting here like gathering all my stuff to think like, who can I talk to to help me with my writing, and
Yay!
I talked to to finish up these recommendations, you know. So I'm super excited for this opportunity. But I also like I had some windows open. You guys were talking about Columbia. I was looking into the 2021 HBCU fellowship for Columbia as well. And so it's just, you know, things are just starting to like line up. You know, I think my prayers are starting to become clear. So yes, I am interested in a long, I have a long statement.
Yay! Well, thank you. First of all, Anne, thank you for asking that great question. Deja, yes, you know, 7 countries, you know, you're sort of ripe for this experience. And, you know, I'll be looking for your application, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. And apply to both Rangel and Pickering. You know, you guys will all get the notice once the application opens. And yeah, you know, I didn't specify the recommender part, but there are 2, right? So it's only 2 for the graduate fellowship. It's someone who can speak to your academic experience. So that could be a professor, that could be a study abroad advisor, maybe somebody, a professor or a dean, somebody you did research for at the school, and then a professional recommender, someone who can speak to your acumen, your professional character outside of the classroom. So one of the things that's interesting, you know, that's unique, I think, to particularly students of color and students who come from low-income backgrounds, you know, we know that many people have to pay to get through college. And so your resume or your application may not say like, you know, I did this internship at Brookings, and I did this study abroad program, you know, in France. And some fellows actually had to work at H&M or work at McDonald's or work at the campus, you know, career services office just to make sure that they paid their tuition. They may have had multiple jobs to just get through. And so I don't want anybody to feel like they have to have, you know, the elite experiences. This is a financial aid program, but also we want the people who understand resiliency, who understand, who are resourceful, right? And that all comes out in your personal statement and in your interviews, should you get to that phase. So Deja, you know, I'm glad you're applying. Make sure, you know, you start thinking broadly about your story, how you got to where you are and where you want to go, and use, you know, the folks here, Sarah and Anne, your faculty advisors, et cetera, your community of supporters, to make sure that you put in a stellar application. And I will say that we do several webinars just on the various components of the application. So throughout the summer and early part of the fall, we'll be doing more targeted outreach around like how to put together a good personal statement, how to work with recommenders, what does financial need mean. So I'm so excited you're thinking about it. You're going to apply, not thinking, you're going to apply.
Yes, ma'am. Going to apply.
Nzinga, what about you? What's on your
Hi.
mind? Hi.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Nzinga Mohammed from Rochester, New York. I'm a rising junior. So I would be looking more towards, well, I would like to apply eventually to the graduate program, but for right now, it would be the summer enrichment. I have not been to 7 countries.
It's all right.
My resume is not that broad, but outside of Bennett, I have been to Turkey through one other program, and there we did talk about human rights and gender-based policy, and we met with government officials who told us about international affairs. So that really sparked my interest and piqued my interest. So I definitely want to keep the ball going with that, and I want to see where this enrichment program, the domestic setting, will really take me.
Perfect.
And I'm also
You cut out.
in law school. I know you said they don't really fund law degrees. You hear me?
You broke up just a little bit. I heard law school, but I didn't hear the beginning part.
Okay, I know you say you don't fund law degrees, which is
Correct.
fine.
Okay.
But it's fine. But I am interested in internationalism and human rights, gender-based policy, and things. So
Very cool. Very
And
cool.
Nzinga, correct me if I'm wrong, haven't you taken 2 semesters of Arabic?
I have.
He was like, I ain't been to no countries, but I do speak Arabic. Girl, yes.
I'm working on enhancing my fluency in Arabic and Spanish.
Good.
But
Good.
definitely want to pick up more Arabic. I feel like I absolutely need to.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 languages right now.
Nice. That's amazing. Well, Nzinga, you can actually, it's intensive, but if you're planning it right, you can actually apply to both SEP and the graduate program, because you'll be a graduate, so you'll be a senior next year, so you would qualify for SEP, and you could qualify for the graduate fellowship. So what could happen is let's say you apply to the graduate program first, you get in, you can decide like, I don't need to apply to the summer enrichment program. Now,
Right.
if the opposite happens, where you apply to graduate fellowship, you don't get in, but you apply to SEP, you get into SEP, you will already have had the bulk of your information. You already know what to expect for the graduate fellowship, so that you can apply again next year and you don't have to like start all of your pieces from scratch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very true.
Okay, so I want you to start today.
Okay.
On our website, we don't have the link to the application, obviously, but on our website, we spell out everything that you need to start to prepare for both of them. But I also understand, I respect that, things get busy with school and other family obligations and life. But if you have the bandwidth to apply to both, you can streamline your recommenders, you can pull personal statements from other programs that are similar and just tweak it a little bit. So definitely keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And how about Ann Hayes, who's not Ann Hayes? Let's see. All right, maybe Adina?
She had her question. It's in the chat, actually.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
great.
I was just asking, what happens if the student, so even though the program might not fund JDs or, extremely professional programs like that, what if the student is in a dual graduate degree program? You know how some JDs are combined in conjunction with an MBA program. Does that assist them in qualifying that way?
So first things first, you apply for the graduate school after you've been accepted into our program. So you can, so you apply to the graduate fellowship. There is a question that asks you if you've applied to graduate school, but it's not a requirement. But you do have to put in like schools that you're interested in the application. Once you're accepted into the program, that's when you begin the process of figuring out what graduate school program you want to go to. Now, so the second part of your question, we do fund dual degrees so long as you can complete it in 2 years, excluding a JD, right? So we will not fund, even if you finish your JD program / MBA program in 2 years, you wouldn't be able to participate in that program because the State Department wouldn't fund it. However, if you wanted to do a dual degree and say in like MBA and MPA, like a master's in public administration and a master's in business administration that gets done in 2 years,
Okay.
Absolutely, because both of those degrees are in line with the sort of umbrella programs that the State Department funds.
Okay, gotcha.
That's a great question. We also have people who do US-based institutions, but they might do like their first or second year abroad, say at, a school in, where?
Hopkins.
Hopkins. Like they might be at Hopkins, DC for 1 year, but then Hopkins in China for another,
Right.
or Hopkins in Argentina, so long as the school itself is based in the US.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And also it has to be, well, even though this is weird to say now since everyone's at home, but it has to be an on-campus program. It can't be online.
Yeah, we don't fund
Gotcha.
online programs. Yeah. Yep. Well, we are about 5 minutes over. Thank you all for joining and for your great questions. And again, Sarah and Ann, thank you for getting the word out and being so helpful in the Zoom and participating. This has really been great. I will share my link where students, if they want to chat with me for 20 minutes or so, I will share that with you all after, as well as the recording that you can, blast to as many people as you like. And certainly, if we want to do this again in the fall, I'm happy to do it again with students who are interested in the fall.
Perfect.
I just want to say, Bunmi and Laurel, wow. What a great hour. Thank you both so much. This is phenomenal. These programs are amazing. I hope the word gets out and lots of Bennett Belles apply and are successful.
Yes.
Just, you guys are doing incredible work, and thanks for sharing with us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for coming. Oh, and reaching out to me on that HBC. I almost missed it. So glad.
I'll have to tell Tania that group actually has been very helpful for us. We all work in the same, normally we're in the same office with the study abroad team at Howard, but obviously we're not, but we work closely with them to make sure we reach out to the various networks of schools that they are in touch with. So I'm glad that worked out for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We didn't see you. We visited Raina in February.
Oh, I was probably working on selections for the, or working on the Summer Enrichment
Oh,
Program.
yeah.
Probably working on that. But yeah, the next time you're, God willing, when this is all over, if you're back in DC, definitely stop by. My cube is just around the corner from Raina's.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.